Major changes are coming to student loans. A new Republican tax cut and spending law imposes limits on how much students can borrow from the federal government and cuts down on some of the most generous repayment plans. Our national reporter Evan Koslof has been digging into the changes, and he joins us in the New York studio. Evan, so happy that you're joining us today. Remind us about this massive bill that was signed into law last month.
Right, so you may recall there was this big signing ceremony at the White House. It was actually on July 4th when they signed it. And a lot of the focus has been on those big ticket items. So we're talking about the $4.5 trillion in tax cuts, the slashing of programs like Medicaid and SNAP, which is the food assistance program. But nestled in there were big changes to federal student loans, which prospective students are paying close attention to. Take a look. What is your dream?
To be a primary care physician.
Jonathan Ayal is a medical assistant at a dermatology practice in Washington, D.C., and has big plans for what comes next. He has just 4 courses left before he could apply to medical school.
Helping people, grow old in a healthy way. I feel like there's a very important role to play for the primary care physician.
But Ayal knows that the cost of reaching his goals is high.
A lot of med schools are very expensive, and tuition is sometimes north of $50,000 a year.
In fact, according to a 2024 report from the Education Data Initiative, the average med school tuition costs nearly $60,000 per year, a total of nearly $240,000.
But starting next July, the amount of federal loans available for students will be capped. It's one of the provisions of that massive Republican-backed tax and spending bill, which was signed into law on July 4th.
The bill put a yearly borrowing limit on grad students of just over $20,000, bumping it up to $50,000 for those getting professional degrees, for example, to become a doctor or a lawyer. The bill also does away with the popular Grad Plus loans, which allows grad students to borrow the full cost of tuition.
Those loans were kind of like a lifeline for many of us.
The bill also sets a lifetime cap for all federal student loans, graduate and undergrad, at just over $257,000 and limits parents to borrowing $20,000 per year for each child.
So what's the logic behind enacting these changes?
All of this is likely to save taxpayers over $300 billion.
Preston Cooper is a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, a conservative think tank, and says the government is actually losing money on student loans, getting back just 75 cents for every dollar. That's because some students inevitably borrow too much and aren't able to pay the money back.
I mean, right now, universities basically have a blank check because students can borrow as much as they want, which means that universities can charge as much as they want and basically pass the cost to taxpayers.
Republicans argue that these loan caps will force universities to lower tuition, but critics say the limits on federal loans will drive some students towards private lenders, whose loans may come with higher interest rates and less flexible repayment options. All these changes presenting students like Ayal with tough decisions about their future.
It is a little bit daunting because there are so many uncertainties.
And Evan, this bill also made some big changes to how these massive loans are being paid back by students. Tell us more about that.
Right, so before this bill, there were roughly a dozen repayment plans.
Yeah.
Now there are just 2. So there's a standard, big change. There's a standard plan where it's the same every month. And then there's also an income-based plan, which of course is based on how much you make. And among the plans that are now eliminated is the SAVE plan, which was unveiled by former President Joe Biden back in 2023. That plan drastically cut monthly payments for many and even forgave many federal loans. But this plan never really took off because it's been caught up in legal challenges and now it's formally eliminated. And Sharon, the change is worrying a lot of borrowers because their monthly payments could go up for some of these people by hundreds of dollars. So a lot's on the line for these borrowers.
Yeah, hundreds of dollars is that's tough for a lot of people.